Greetings everyone, this is Danny from HarrTravel.com, your crystal expedition experts, and today I'm on board the incredible Crystal Endeavor. This amazing ship is specially built for Antarctica and the Arctic in mind, but so many other amazing destinations. And today I have a treat for you. I'm here with Steve Moir, who is the expedition leader here on board the Crystal Endeavor. It's nice to meet you, Steve.
Nice to meet you as well, Danny.
Absolutely. So Steve has actually had some test driving done on this particular ship. So we're about, what, 3 months in now?
We are about 3 months in. We started in the shipyard in Stralsund, Germany, and early July we made our way over on a positioning trip to Iceland for our inaugural voyage, July 17th.
Wow.
So we had an amazing crossing, put the ship through her paces, and I have to say, she's an incredible vessel. Our captain's impressed, our crew's impressed, and I believe our guests are impressed as well.
Now, I know that they took extra care when designing this vessel for a couple different reasons, right? I mean, obviously you're going to the far reaches of the Earth, so you've got to get everything perfect, as you would imagine.
Yeah.
But also there's some things about expedition that you may not think about. So one of the things that Steve and I were talking about a little bit ago was about the ship design itself, how well it handles, and why that makes it uniquely exceptional for Antarctica specifically, but also for all the other destinations. Do you have any feedback on that, about some of the special features of this specific expedition vessel?
Yeah, Danny, I think you hit some great points there, in that the ship was specifically designed to go to these far off and remote regions. The design of the hull is conducive to traveling in these big seas like we see in the Drake Passage. She has incredible stabilizers, so although in 7 and 10 meter seas, we're still going to see some pitching and rolling. I have to say that she's unlike any other vessel I've been on. It's a smooth ride. We don't feel the vibrations. Her high bow is going to split those waves, and we're going to be the Rolls-Royce down south this winter. The southern season will be the fastest ship in the Southern Ocean, which gives us the ability to race across the Drake Passage, stay ahead of those storms, and get to the places we want to go sooner than any of the other ships.
I love that. And you know, one of the key parts of going on an expedition is photography. And one of the things that I love that you were talking about earlier was, you know, the way they've put in those stabilizers, the way the ship avoids vibrations is a big part of being able to document the experience as well as experience it yourself. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. So one of the things I've noticed about the Endeavor compared to other ships I've been on is that she's incredibly smooth, and even on deck 10 and deck 9 with tripods set up, we're just not seeing or feeling the vibrations that we have on other vessels. So when the ship's underway and when we're moving, this is still an incredible platform for photographers to get those shots they're looking for. So whether it's when we're in Svalbard and photographing polar bears, or when we're in the Antarctic and seeing penguins and whales and other wildlife while we're down there, she's an incredible platform for viewing and photography.
Awesome. So, you know, obviously the expedition leader and then the expedition crew really bring the experience to you. To me, it's what connects the guests together with what they're seeing, what they're experiencing. What is it that makes you an expedition leader? What's your background and how did you get to this incredible position?
I've been very fortunate in that my primary line of work has been water-based expedition guiding for about 28 years. I moved into expedition cruising aboard ships in 2018. From there, I've applied kind of my experience and my background to work through this role, and I'm supported by an incredible team. Crystal has gone out of their way to dive into the industry and seek out some of the strongest crew and expedition staff that are out there and assemble them together here on the Endeavor to provide an incredible experience both for our in-house team and us working together, and as well for guests. It's a symbiotic relationship between guests and the expedition team, and that we require them for us to travel to these places, and same that they require us to travel to these places. So it's a win-win relationship, and we are truly thankful and happy to be here and to be traveling again.
Absolutely. It's so nice to be back. In fact, I've been pinching myself all day. I've been waiting for, I think, 5 or 6 years to see this amazing vessel. Now, keep in mind, if you want to see the full ship, all the rooms and suites, we have those on our channel as well so that you can check out the tour. Now, let's talk a little bit more about this ship and its design, but more than that, the features that you have here on board. Now, there's a few that are still in process. You know, you're going to have an incredible helicopter experience, a full submersible. Right now, today, what is it that's unique about this particular ship as far as, you know, the Zodiacs, the mudroom, kind of the whole concept of what makes this unique in Antarctica?
Well, the Endeavor is an ice-class ship, so she's meant to travel into these far-off places and into fast ice or brash ice, so that first year ice or the broken up ice that we see down there. Her incredible stabilizers will provide a smooth ride, and she's so well outfitted with our expedition gear. We have kayaks on board that give us the ability to take up to 24 guests out kayaking at any given time. And this can be for first-time paddlers or seasoned paddlers. Our guides are skilled and happy to bring folks out and experience that environment from a kayak perspective. Right. And then we utilize 2 different types of Mark 6 Zodiacs, or Zodiacs. One is a Mark 6 and one is a Mark 5. So a center console Mark 6 with a 100-horse motor on it, and a tiller-driven Mark 5 with a 60. So these allow us to get into these small nooks and crannies and into these far-off places. And this is expedition equipment. This is what gives us the ability to get into these places. What's unique about Crystal is that it's all high-quality equipment, and then we have features like a gimbal camera, which is this incredible piece of equipment up on the mast of the ship. 360-degree views, 90 times zoom. So as we're traveling along and we're looking for polar bears, we have the unique advantage of doing this with a camera like this. Then we can kind of hone in and find the right place to launch our Zodiacs. And the same goes for whales and penguin colonies. This camera gives folks the ability to see these things from the comfort of the ship, and then to choose to also get into a Zodiac and go out and see them as well.
That's amazing. So now you guys have a marina, which is a unique feature here. Is that where the kayaks would launch from generally, or do those go from the mudroom area?
The way we run our kayak program is kayaks are stored on deck 9 along with the Zodiacs, and we utilize the ship's cranes to put those down onto the water. They get picked up by a Zodiac. Guests are then picked up by the Zodiac, and we travel to where the best paddling is. So this may be 15, 20 minutes or a few kilometers from the ship. So everyone travels with the kayaks in tow, and then you enter the kayaks from the Zodiac, and this allows us to go to the best place for kayaking that day without having to paddle directly from the ship.
That's an incredible thing. So very much, I've called this a mega yacht, and that's really what it is. And that's the same concept with the cranes and how they would load those on and off. Now, one of the unique features about this ship that I loved when I checked out was the mudroom. And it was a little bit differently designed. Can you tell us just a little bit about that, what the function of it is?
Yeah, these mudrooms make me smile. They're incredibly well laid out. They're incredibly comfortable and functional as well. Okay. So each guest suite has 2 cubbies allocated to each suite, and then boot hooks right in between them that are also boot dryers and warmers. So as you enter into the mudroom, you locate where your cubby is. You can leave items in there that you want to take with you on the Zodiacs on a daily basis. Your PFD, your life jacket collar, is stored in there. Okay. There's also an espresso machine in the starboard side mudroom.
The espresso man over there.
Yeah, all the comforts have been thought out, and it provides great flow. The mudroom doors is where we access the Zodiacs, and again, if you have the opportunity to come on board, it's just one of those great elements of the ship that we're very proud of.
Right, and another great feature I noticed in my room was there's actually a spot to put the jackets, and they're going to dry off right there, and they actually have easy access for the butler to swap them out or clean or anything that they would need to do.
Yeah, this is just the level of thought and detail that comes with a Crystal ship and the Crystal experience, is that all of these details have been thought out and implemented throughout the ship.
Right. So now Crystal has over 30 years of experience in cruising, but they're relatively new to this game. And something that I have really, really been blown away with was, one, I mean, sometimes it's better to be later on because you can see what everybody else is doing. You can figure out the things that work, the things that don't. And then what I've found Crystal has done is one of the solutions has been put more money, more time into the development. And so this ship, it's been developed over the last 5 to 6 years. And as you walk around the ship, there's so many little details and touches that you'll never see on another expedition ship. In fact, there's some that are this size that hold, 300, 400, 500 people even. Yeah. Now, 200 is the magic number in Antarctica for a lot of reasons. And one of the reasons I talk to guests about why Crystal's the perfect spot is that you're never going to have more than 200 passengers or 200 guests here during the Antarctica season. Other places may be a little bit different. Why is that the case?
Well, what's unique about Antarctica is that we follow the rules and guidelines of IATO. And this determines that the majority of our landing sites, so sites where there are penguin colonies, where we're going to see these colonies, have a maximum number of guests that can be ashore at any given time. And this number, more often than not, is 100. So with the ship having a maximum guest capacity of 200, this allows us to have 100 guests Zodiac cruising, which we have more than enough Zodiacs for. So they can be out cruising, going through little graveyard or iceberg graveyards, as well as looking for leopard seals and Weddell seals and humpback whales and orca, while another half of the ship is on shore and looking at the penguin colonies. Then they would transfer positions, and this first group would be off doing Zodiac cruising while the other group of guests are on shore. So this is where the 200 guest maximum is the magic number.
Right, and I mean, it's a thoughtful choice that Crystal has made. Now, I mean, they could make more money putting more people on, but of course it impacts the guest experience. And that's something that I've known Crystal for 30 years, and for this specific ship, is that they're willing to basically change the experience so that they can give the best possible experience, on a ship like this. Now, 20,000 tons for 200 passengers, and more crew than guests. I mean, that's truly incredible. And you've been on other expedition ships. How does this measure up when it comes to the cruise experience itself, the food, the dining, the service, things like that?
Yeah, it's almost an unfair comparison. It just doesn't match up. So, from my perspective, the public areas, the quality and the room in the suites, the balconies, are second to none and far exceed everything I've experienced in the past on other ships, which have been quite nice. But I had never known Crystal, and so in coming here and experiencing this, I can see why there are society members and why people are loyal and return to Crystal year after year. And they've kept suit and done that with the Endeavour as well. So beautiful spaces, incredible experience, and that special care that Crystal is known for has transitioned and translated quite well into the Endeavour.
Absolutely. Now, I was lucky enough to cruise on the Crystal Harmony with my grandparents quite a few years ago. So it's been decades since that I've been cruising with Crystal, and I was lucky enough to bring my daughter to Alaska just a couple years ago.
Wow.
And I can't wait to get her on board this particular ship. I mean, there's so many perfect things, and for me personally, Antarctica is my 7th continent, so I can't wait for that as well. But this is a dynamic ship that's great for lots of different types of passengers. What do you do, or what would be available for a family per se on a cruise like this to Antarctica or the Arctic?
Well, we've had this ship. We did 6 circumnavigations of Iceland, and at times we had 3 generations from one family on board. So adult children with their parents and their children on board as well. And they were able to find that their parents were maybe more inclined to spend more time on board and on the ship. Beautiful public spaces. The library here is one of them. The Expedition Lounge, as well as some incredible outer decks and spaces there. As well as the culinary experience on board. Well, then they could go off and experience the excursions and go for hikes, and the same would go for the Antarctic season. Some members of the family may be more inclined or more adventurous to be outside, yet there are still so many comforts on the ship that no one's feeling left out or left behind. So I think there's a little bit of something for everyone on board. And again, Crystal's done an incredible job to facilitate all those environments.
Absolutely. So in Antarctica, one of the questions I get a lot, there's different lengths of cruises, and you can, they have some that go to South Georgia, different things that they can put together. The classic itinerary that you have is an 11-day itinerary, essentially, and that's start to finish on both sides.
Correct.
One of the things that, like I said, I get all the time is that enough time in Antarctica? And, approximately how much time do you actually spend there, and what would you see in a cruise like that? What types of animals, and I know this is a big loaded question, but what types of animals, and does it give you that experience that you're looking for? It
does. So the first part of your question is that enough time? Right. And from my perspective, I'm fortunate enough to spend 2 to 3 months in Antarctica every year, and that feels like just enough time for me. But for a holiday, for an experience, time down there, 11 days is ample. This is great for that quintessential experience. Yeah. So the Drake Passage is a rite of passage for some folks to travel from Ushuaia, from the most southern city in the world, across the Drake Passage to the peninsula of Antarctica. And sometimes we see the Drake Lake, and it's a relatively calm crossing. And sometimes we get what we call the Drake Shake. And this is where we'll see substantial waves. But this is the ship to travel through the Drake Passage on. Once we're to the peninsula, we're in relatively well-protected areas. So the sea state calms down, it settles out. It's normally quite calm sailing. And what would we experience? Well, we're definitely down there to see the penguin colonies, Adelies, Gentoo penguins, as well as some chinstrap penguins. And if we went to the Falkland Islands in South Georgia, there'd be macaroni and rockhoppers as well. So that experience of going to penguin colonies and seeing those is an expectation that we can always meet while we're down there. We never provide wildlife guarantees, but the probability and likelihood is quite high. So especially later in the season, humpback whales, and then not as frequently, we would see fin whales, minke whales, and also Weddell seals and leopard seals. So those kind of big five that you would expect to see in Antarctica are abundant, and I can say that I've always seen them when I've been down there on a 10-day trip. So is 10 days enough? Yes. Will you want to come back for more? Yeah. Definitely.
Well, and I mean, I've had people book back-to-backs and, combine them together. And then you guys also have, I think, some 15 and even 20-day itineraries that piece, multiple parts together. Now, we talked a lot about Antarctica, and, a lot of times people are expecting to see polar bears in Antarctica, and that's really not the case. But you guys do see polar bears as well. You mentioned that earlier. Mm-hmm. What's that experience like in the Arctic that's different from Antarctica?
Well, although they are both poles. They're both polar areas and regions. They couldn't be more different. Okay. So when we're in the north and in around Svalbard and Norway, going out of Longyearbyen.
So that's a couple hundred miles north of like Sweden, Norway, basically?
Yeah, so this is the Arctic. Okay. And this is where you're going to see polar bears. Few and far between, but again, between the gimbal camera, the experience and the knowledge of our ship's officers, our captain, and the expedition team are going to raise the odds and the probability that you're going to see these great animals. So quite different, pretty hard to compare the two, but definitely polar bears in the north and penguins in the south.
I love that. Now, just to hop back to Antarctica, you and I talked about this a little bit before, but you're there generally from about November through February or so. Throughout the season, if somebody's looking for something in particular, what would drive them to go earlier, middle, late in the season, other than schedules, of course? Sure,
so that's a great question, because there are elements to each part of the season that maybe fit the needs or desires of different people. Early season, we're seeing these white snow, pristine environments. The adult penguins are there. There's a little bit of their courtship, and they're going to be covering their eggs. Gentoos will be building their little rock nests. And then as we get a little bit later in the season, by early mid-December, we're starting to see small penguin chicks. And we're also starting to see the markings that the penguins have been there for a little while. They love to eat krill, and krill is red. And so the snow color tends to change a little bit later in the season. So not as white and crisp, but this is kind of offset by seeing these cute little penguin chicks. And adults kind of returning with food every day. And as we move later into the season, this is where we start to see more of the whales arriving. So we see bigger numbers of the humpback whales in Wilhelmina Bay, just in these incredible places. So early season, great photography, white snow, very pristine. Mid-season, penguin chicks. Late season, we're going to start to see more whales and seeing the penguin chicks starting to leave as well.
Okay. So one of the things that we get asked a lot, a lot of cruise lines, big ships will do Antarctica, right? I mean, they're saying they're doing it, but they're not actually landing. I mean, that's the big difference from a big cruise ship to this. Now, when you land, what is a landing like? How much time are you actually on the ground in Antarctica at a time? And, during one of those classic, 11-day itineraries, how many times might you actually set foot on Antarctica?
Okay. Fair question. So we'll spend a day or a day and a half traveling through the Drake Passage on our way down and on our way back. And this is going to leave us 8 or 9 days actually on the peninsula. Generally, we will be doing 2 landings a day. So a landing in the morning would start approximately 9 a.m. and go till 12:30.
I like 9 a.m.
Yeah,
better than 7
this
a.m.
is
I'm
nice.
just saying.
No, I agree, right? We're on holidays, or at least you guys are on holidays. So get up, have a nice breakfast, enjoy the solarium. Then we'll have the Zodiacs ready. We'll bring you to shore. And folks will be able to wander around within the penguin colonies. Expedition team are always there to provide enrichment. We'll maybe have our photographers on one side, an artist in residence in another area, and if guests are interested in hiking, we'll have one of our guides taking folks off for a hike as well. So it's not just a Zodiac ride to shore, here are the penguins, come back when you're ready.
Right.
We're going to provide enrichment on every site that we land at and try to cater to the needs of all of our guests. So we would do a landing like this in the morning. We'd return to the ship. Guests would have lunch. Then we'd reposition the ship to another spot where maybe it's a different type of penguin colony. Maybe there's a gentle hike in the morning and something a little more rugged in the afternoon. So generally we're doing 2 landings in a day. Maybe one is a penguin colony and the other one is a station visit in the afternoon. So over an 11-day trip, we're most likely going to be doing between 11 and 16 different landings, some be it at just colonies, some of them at stations, and some days we're doing Zodiac cruising through the afternoon or in the early morning as well.
Absolutely. So one of the questions that I get a lot is what kind of physical shape do I need to be in to go to Antarctica? And I know, with this cruise, there's people that will book it and, maybe not be able to do all the landings or do that kind of thing, and they want to experience it. But as far as, to get a good experience, right? One that you'd say, hey, I went and I really got what I was looking for.
Yeah.
What type of physical features would you say, or things that people may want to keep in mind before they book something along these lines?
So what we like to say is if you can go up and down a flight of stairs, if you can get yourself down to the Zodiac, we'll get you in the Zodiac and we will get you to shore. At times, maybe the sea state or the weather conditions aren't conducive to an easy landing for everyone. So if your physical abilities maybe aren't what they used to be, more often than not, we're still going to get you to shore. We're going to get you to the places that you want to go, with the realization that some days the sea state or the loading of the Zodiac might be just a little bit too sporty for some of our guests. Absolutely. So I would come with the expectation that if you have the ability to go up and down stairs and step into a Zodiac, we feel as though we'll be able to get you to these places.
Absolutely, yeah, because I've had, frankly, some of the happiest guests that I've ever had come back were the ones who weren't sure whether they were they were going to be able to do, and then they realize they step foot on the continent, and it just kind of erases everything else. It's kind of that ultimate achievement, if you will. So I really appreciate that. Now, on board the ship, you're going to do a lot of different things to prepare the guests for what they're doing each and every single day.
Yeah.
What does it look like, on the days during the crossing, and then on a day when you're in Antarctica or anywhere? What kind of preparation do you provide for the guests? Where does that happen on board, and what does that look like?
Well, we have this great space on the ship called the Cove. This is not only where some of the night entertainment happens, but this is where we'll do our Zodiac briefing. So we go through the ins and outs of how Zodiacs work, how we get into them, how we travel, how we disembark when we're on shore. So we do a full briefing that's aided by slides, short videos, and then open the floor up to questions for guests to learn about what it's going to be like to travel in a Zodiac, whether it be cruising or doing shore landings. Expedition staff are often in the expedition lounge. We're here to answer questions and queries and give folks an idea of what it's like to head out and how to dress and all these questions that come with traveling to these far off places.
Absolutely. Do you provide any gear for them, or do people bring their own gear? How does that work as far as, I'm getting ready to go on an expedition, I'm packing my bags. What is it that I need to bring with me versus what you'll provide here on board?
Right. So we encourage people to dress as though they were going out on a relatively cold day. So I would say -5 degrees Celsius or what's that? That's going to be mid-20s.
Yeah.
So mid-20s. So dress as though you're going to spend a couple hours outside like that. One of the wonderful features of Crystal is they have these incredible red crystal parkas. And once you put this on, this is yours to keep. You take it home. So every guest is provided with a brand new parka with an incredibly comfortable and warm liner. And then we would encourage you to bring waterproof pants, your own gloves, and a warm hat. We'll also provide dry bags for you to put a camera in and take those items to shore. Yeah, and other than that, we also provide muck boots. So these warm neoprene boots, so if we're doing wet landings where you're stepping in 4 to 6 inches of water to get onto shore, we provide those boots. They're kept in the mudroom. They're put on dryers every evening, and those will keep your feet warm and dry.
That's awesome. So is there anything that I should be telling people? Now, of course, I'm a travel advisor. It's what I do for a living. People contact us. We work through the entire process and book it and then essentially hand them off to you.
Yeah.
What is it that you wish that I would have told people to prepare them, things that they're surprised about? And I know I'm putting you on the spot a little bit with that.
That's okay.
But, I'm sure you get those questions of like, I wish I knew that going into it.
Yeah. I would say come sooner than later. Don't procrastinate and put it off.
Yep.
Bring lots of memory cards for your camera.
Okay.
Bring sunscreen. This is one of the things is a lot of people think I'm going to Antarctica, it's incredibly cold.
Yeah.
It's one of the driest regions on the planet. So we do see quite a bit of sunshine while we're down there. Bring sunglasses, bring a strap for your glasses, and a sense of adventure.
I love that. I love all those things. And it's, I tend to burn, so I better pack up that extra sunscreen. So on the ship, you were just talking about photography, right? One of the big parts of going to Antarctica is capturing that. And one of the things I tell all of my guests when I do a lot of hosted groups that I'll lead a tour, and I always basically tell them, get to know your camera before you go, because you don't want to figure that out when you're in the moment and you can't get that perfect penguin shot because you have the wrong setting. Is there any advice that you would have on that of maybe, the types of cameras to bring or things to be prepared for if you are going to be traveling with camera equipment?
Well, I would say bring what you're comfortable with. And these days, iPhones and GoPros provide incredible photos. And those are sometimes more than enough. However, if you have bought a new camera or you're venturing more into photography, know that when you come on board, our expedition team, we all drive Zodiacs, but everyone has their specialties. We have marine biologists, ornithologists, artist in residence, and of course, we have a resident photographer on board. Okay. So if you're wanting to learn more about photography, composition, or even just the features and workings of a new camera to you, or one that you've had for years and haven't taken off auto, bring it on board. Our photographers give lectures, just like all of our other expedition team members in their specialty areas, but do some one-on-one time with the photographer and take advantage of the resources that we have on board. And dive into it and learn more, whether it be composition or the mechanics of your camera.
So one of the things that you mentioned is you guys do have specialists here on board. Each and every person has their own specialty, and one of those is photography.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I encourage people when I travel with them is sometimes to put the camera down and just be in the moment. That was my grandpa used to like to say, be here now. Yeah. Right. And so what would you suggest to those guests who are worried about, missing something or not getting that shot? What are you providing, what is Crystal providing in order to kind of complement that experience?
Yeah, so I think this is a great and very valid point in that sometimes it's good to just put the camera aside and experience the moment for what it is. And rest assured that you'll have that experience, but it will also be captured by our onboard photographer and videographer. So part of their role throughout the voyage is that they're going to document it. Everything from coming up on gangway when you first embark the ship, some of the lectures and enrichment that's happening on board, as well as all the activities that we're doing when we're off the ship. And this is wrapped up or culminated at the end of the voyage with our Crystal Memories, or your Crystal Memories. And there's a slideshow and film presentation at the end, and we provide a copy of this for all of our guests to take home. And this is a really nice, simple way to share the experience with friends and family when you get home. Instead of flipping through that quintessential old photo album of we went here and we did this, it's well organized, professionally put together. There's music in the background, and it really captures the element of what the trip was and where we went. and this we provide to everyone.
I'm just old enough to, I was picturing my grandpa taking out his old, the slide projector with the screen and all of that. And every time they'd go anywhere, he'd come back and do all that. In fact, my dad and I were lucky enough to dig through those. And for me, what that's all about, it's the memories.
Yeah.
And one of the great things about a cruise is that what you're doing is you're creating a community.
Yes.
From scratch that will never be replicated ever again. It's truly a once in a lifetime experience. It allows you to gather together, be who you are, basically maybe be who you want to be, that maybe you're not at home. But I love that idea that you're going to get all of those memories documented for you as you like and presented to you. Now, there's places all around the world where this incredible ship goes where you're going to create those memories. I've been heavy on Antarctica and the Arctic because, you know, a lot of the things with this particular ship were designed with those in mind. But this ship also has some incredible itineraries that's going through Asia. In fact, I've got my eye on some of those longer Japan ones that are unbelievable. And of course, with a smaller ship like this, you can get into destinations that you can't on a bigger ship. What are some of the destinations that you're looking forward to that maybe caught your eye that this ship's going to be doing in the next couple of years?
Wow, it's this is probably the toughest question you give me all day. There are spectacular itineraries, and like you said, we're traveling between the poles, and in order to get to one and back to the other, we need to travel everything in between. So I would say, what are my highlights coming up? Is I'd say the culmination of this Antarctic season, we leave Ushuaia for our final departure on the 1st of March. We make our way through South Georgia, the Falkland Islands, and then we're crossing to South Africa, to Cape Town, with hopefully, fingers crossed, we may be able to land at Tristan da Cunha. And from there, we'll head to Cape Town and then up the west coast of Africa.
You see some penguins there in Cape Town, too.
Yeah, there you go, right? We can't get away from these penguins until we go to the Arctic. But yeah, the west coast of Africa is, I think, one of those far-off places that has been on my list to go to, and I can't think of a better way to go there than aboard this ship. And with this expedition team and the crew on board. So I think that's one of the great highlights. We had an amazing season circumnavigating Iceland, the Faroe Islands, again, Svalbard. Essentially, if you let me keep talking, I'm just going to ramble off all the itineraries for the next couple of years. And this is, again, what's unique about Crystal is a lot of the other ships that are going between the poles are well focused on those two areas. Whereas Crystal is definitely going off the beaten path into these far-off places in between the seasons in the polar regions. And this, I'll be honest, was a big attraction for me to join the Crystal family and to be on the Endeavour and to explore the world, not just the poles.
Absolutely, and I think something very important that you mentioned that a lot of people may not know is that the expedition team is always on the ship. I mean, there's different, you know, obviously you guys are going to go home at different times and people come back and different specialties, but this ship has some incredible, in addition to the ones that you mentioned, they've got some European itineraries that are out of this world. I think after the next Antarctic season, it's also going to be doing a bit of Australia, New Zealand, and more Asia as well. And so, you know, there's also another ship on the horizon. It's going to be a little bit further off, a couple years down the road. But one of the things that's so unique about this is that you're getting an ultra luxury experience and an expedition experience. And just a couple years ago, that didn't even exist. That wasn't even something. I mean, they're using older boats, they're using, you know, reconstructed things. And so the luxury of having something built with all of these years of experience combined, taking the hundreds of years of all the expedition leaders combined and theirs to create a unique experience that only Crystal can do. And so I'm really, really excited for you to get on board this ship and share it so that you can cruise with Steve and his crew, but you can experience this unbelievable ship. Now, I mentioned it earlier, if you want to see the ship itself, if you want to see the different rooms and suites, they've got 2 suites on this ship that are unlike anything on any other expedition ship ever built. I was just in them a few minutes ago. You can host the whole, I think you can host the whole ship in there and have an incredible party. But all of those things put together for an unbelievable expedition experience, whether you're going this year or next, I highly recommend that you check out the Crystal Endeavour and you give it a shot. Now, keep in mind, when you're ready to book that cruise or any cruise with Crystal Cruises, reach out to Harr Travel. We are your luxury experts. We know the spaces inside and out. We have an amazing relationship with Steve, with all of the entire Crystal family, and we can't wait to make you part of the Crystal family or come back for yet another voyage.